Hi there, my name is Eros Elizabeth Bathory, and today we're gonna be doing something completely different for the second fucking time. In the bio of my YouTube channel, I state that I am an extremely devout metalhead, and there's no genre of metal I hold closest to my heart than the genre of black metal. For today's video, I'd like to welcome you all to a poser's guide to black metal. If and when you decide to look into the iceberg that is the black metal genre, haha, you'll come to realize that a lot of the lore and a lot of the overall aesthetic of black metal, it can be a little intimidating to the average person. If you think the lead singer of Motley Crue killing a guy in a drunk driving accident is pretty heavy, you're really gonna want to prepare yourself for the shit I'm about to tell you throughout this series. For this episode and the many episodes to come, I'm gonna be explaining each branch, each era, and overall each genre of black metal that I listen to personally in my own time. I'll be doing so in a way that's beginner friendly, but still has a little bit of substance for any diehards that come across this video. By the end of these episodes, I'll also be giving some song recommendations for any newcomers who want to get into the genre. I think that's all I really have to say for this intro. Let's just get started on episode 1 of the Poser's Guide to Black Metal. For today's episode, we are going to be looking into the first wave of black metal, and thankfully for a lot of you newcomers, this first episode is going to be a bit of an easier one to sit through, because a lot of the crimes and controversy associated with black metal don't really come along until the second wave, and all that bullshit is for the second episode. First wave black metal is widely believed to have started in the early 1980s with the release of Venom's sophomore album Black Metal in 1982, as well as Bathory's self-titled debut in 1984. Both of these albums gained infamy and worldwide acclaim due to their revolutionary harsh sound, as well as their lyrical content of Satanism, witchcraft, and in Venom's case, fucking your teacher. At this point in metal's development, no one had been making songs this edgy. I think the heaviest thing at this point in its history would be a band like Motorhead, and while their speed and their sound isn't really something to scoff at, Venom and Bathory intended to play louder and, if not faster, than Motorhead, and they did so while lyrically embracing the seductive evil of Satan. But the catch with Venom and Bathory, as well as other black metal bands from around the time, is that no one legitimately worshipped Satan. None of these bands were legitimately going around spending their time killing babies or sacrificing virgins. It's especially apparent in early interviews with the members of Venom, as well as Corathon, the sole man behind Bathory, that neither of these bands really held themselves up as genuine satanic cult leaders. They had a bit of a self-awareness and a sense of humor about the evil image that they were presenting through their music. Venom's main focus was to just provide a good show on stage and just sing about and just do what other bands weren't doing at the time. In Bathory's case, Corathon just wanted to make good evil music and occasionally sign tits. So basically, to summarize, this new genre was a way to approach metal that hadn't been done before, and thanks to bands like Venom and Bathory, we now have the genre of black metal, with the genre getting its name from the Venom album I had mentioned earlier. So the sound of first wave black metal is very interesting to describe because there really was no defining sound for it. I think the best way I can describe a lot of these first wave bands is that their lyrical content contains a lot of Satanism, a lot of witchcraft, some necromancy, and other horror-inspired topics, while also being accompanied by very fast riffs that are heavily distorted, or as I put it, blackened. It's important to note that because of the fact there was no real defining sound for first wave black metal, a lot of the black metal bands that are in this video would also go on to heavily inspire a lot of the thrash and death metal scenes forming alongside black metal. Some other metal bands that are commonly associated with the first wave of black metal are bands such as Hellhammer, or more commonly known as Celtic Frost. Hellhammer was formed in 1982, releasing only 3 demos and 1 EP. They split off in 1984, and guitarist Thomas Fisher and bassist Martin Ain would go on to form Celtic Frost. Celtic Frost would go on to influence a lot of the black metal scene to come. Celtic Frost is one of the most commonly thrown around black metal names by black metal geeks such as myself, so much so that not including them in this video would be doing them an extreme disservice. Though they're widely regarded as a thrash metal band, Slayer's debut album Show No Mercy, released in 1983, is more commonly accepted as a first wave black metal album. Once again, more commonly known as a thrash metal band, Destruction's debut EP Sentence of Death is widely regarded as another black metal release. And for the third fucking time, SODOM is also widely regarded as a thrash and speed metal band, but their debut EP, In the Sign of Evil, is commonly regarded as the most influential first wave black metal release. Mercyful Fate is going to be a bit of an interesting inclusion because this is where we really see the idea that first wave black metal didn't really have any kind of defining sound. King Diamond's iconic falsetto vocals were what made Mercyful Fate stand out among other first wave bands that were going for a more evil or outright demonic sound. Now we move on to SARCOFAGO, which formed in Brazil in 1985. SARCOFAGO is also widely regarded as another influential black metal band in the same vein as Celtic Frost, VENOM, and Bathory, so much so that once again not including them in this video would also be a great disservice. And then finishing off this section, we have the band VON, which formed in Hawaii in 1987. Their first and frankly only release, Satanic Blood Angel, is widely renowned by a lot of black metal nerds for its low quality and extreme raw sound. While Bathory and even sometimes SARCOFAGO are often credited as being the prime influences for a lot of the sound within black metal, I feel that VON is also important to note because of the fact that this is the first real band to really have that true grimy and raw feel that's often associated with the black metal genre. So the way I'd like to format this section is pretty much I'm going to be giving you guys a shit ton of albums to listen to. I'm going to be playing some snippets from my favorite songs of each album to give you guys a bit of a sample of what you're going to be listening to throughout each of these albums. So starting off, we have VENOM. Here's my top picks from their debut album, Welcome to Hell. And then moving on to their sophomore album, Black Metal, I'd actually recommend listening to the whole thing in order, not to take away from the experience, but if I really were to pick some favorites, it would be these ones.
We're gonna burn this place to the ground.
And then moving on to Bathory, here's my top picks from their first 3 albums. Slayer, here's my top picks for their Show No Mercy album. Moving on, here are my favorites from Celtic Frost's first and second albums. Moving on to Sodom, we have their most iconic song from In the Sign of Evil. As much as I love In the Sign of Evil, I'd like to bring more attention to a more underrated album, Obsessed by Cruelty. Moving on to Destruction, here's my top picks from Sentence of Death. And here are my top picks from Mercyful Fate's first two albums. Here are my favorite songs from Vaughn. Finishing this section, here are my top picks from SARCOFAGO's INRI album. SARCOFAGO appears to be the first black metal band to really use corpse paint on stage. Corpse paint is a style of makeup that's commonly associated with black metal, but it wouldn't become more widely used until the second wave. As I mentioned earlier, VENOM was a band that formed in Hawaii, but VENOM is also considered to be the first black metal band to form in America. If the artwork on Celtic Frost's To Megatherion album looks familiar to you, that's because it was done by H.R. Giger. He was the guy that designed the Xenomorph as well as the freaky looking Batmobile for Batman Forever. Very obviously, that design for the Batmobile was never used. And then the last piece of trivia I'd like to talk about for this episode is Bathory's Yellow Goat story. Essentially, the first 1,000 copies of Bathory's self-titled debut had the goat printed in yellow. Corathon originally wanted the goat to be printed in gold, but this was both very expensive and very unrealistic to achieve. So he tried to compromise and wanted to print them in a yellow that was as close to gold as possible. He thought it looked like shit, so he decided to just print them all in black and white. By the way, represent. The Yellow Goat is probably the most sought after piece of metal history, with some records going for sale for as high as $1,000, if not more. And with that, we conclude our first episode of The Poser's Guide to Black Metal. I know I gave you guys a shit ton of albums to listen to, but that just means you have a lot of metal homework to do once you click off this video. For any newcomers who made it to the end of this video, I hope you come out of it with a new genre of music to scare your friends and family. And if you didn't like the songs I picked for you guys, that's okay too, because it took me a minute to really love black metal like I do now. So if you like this first episode, like, comment, and subscribe. Hail Satan. And stay tuned for part 2, because that's where black metal starts to go off the rails.